joined now by the former Conservative Party donor, founder of the former mobile phone retailer Phones for You, and philanthropist John Caudwell. Thank you very much for joining us, John. And you've been backing Liz Truss in the leadership campaign. She is imminently, because she has arrived at Balmoral, about to officially become the UK's Prime Minister. What do you want to see from her in these early days?
Well, I think the first thing is very, very clear, and that is that there will be a lot of hardship amongst a percentage of the population. People who are really desperate, short of money, and they would, of course, include pensioners and people with ill health and single-parent families, and there'll be plenty more as well. So really significant help is vital for those people. But also, of course, the businesses with a heavy dependence on energy need significant help as well. And that's not all businesses, because if your energy percentage of your revenue is very low, then the increase in prices won't hurt that much. But some businesses would be put out of business by this increase in energy price. So there needs to be selective help for businesses that will be under duress. And in the same way that I said for the pandemic, my assertion is that nobody should be substantially worse off at the end of this energy crisis than they were at the beginning. Unfortunately, the Tory government made a lot of people better off during the pandemic support, and some people very worse off. So they didn't really get it right, and this time they need to get it right. But you know what we have to also recognise.
Well, I guess some people would, John. Some people would disagree with your take. Unfortunately, it made some people better off. I mean, I take it there's a different point of view there in the approach from the government, but you want selective help on energy. So in other words, getting the help to where it is needed most. How do you think Liz Truss should do that? Do you think it's through this freeze for 18 months? We wait to hear more details on exactly how that's going to be done, who it's going to affect.
First of all, we already know who the poor people are in the country because of government records such as universal credits and so on. So why not do a support mechanism through the administration that we've already got and give people much greater support for their energy through those existing schemes, rather than just carte blanche give it to everybody when a lot of people don't need it. And the point here is, and people won't like this fact, but it is a fact, the pandemic had to be paid for, and it can only be paid for from a reduced standard of living or by mortgaging the future. So does the current population want the government to maintain their living standards and as a consequence mortgage the future for our children and grandchildren? Or do we need to be accountable for our own situation in this current day? And the same applies on the Ukraine situation. It has to be paid for. Somebody's got to pay for it. It can only be paid for out of decreased standard of living or out of government borrowing, which mortgages the future. And the only third option to that is we all work smarter and harder and try and increase productivity in the UK. So, you know, that's
what about windfalls? What about windfall taxes on the big energy companies? Because as far as we can see from this plan, it would see householders or businesses eventually repaying what they've got in bill freezes now over a longer period, 10 to 20 years, paying that back through their bills in the future.
Well, I think that's quite a smart idea, really. And, you know, I've been a cautious advocate of windfall taxes for 3 years now, because during the pandemic, we had massive winners out of the pandemic and we had a lot of losers. And we've got the same now out of this energy crisis. But the problem with windfall taxes is we need to make Britain look attractive for inward investment. And if likely potential inward investors think that we might just suddenly willy-nilly impose taxes, then that can be damaging to the economy. So we have to be very careful on windfall taxes. But I do think there is an argument for windfall taxes on this now, as I did throughout the pandemic. I think it's a supportable argument that people that win massive amounts of profitability that they weren't expecting and that's at the expense of other people, I think a special one-off tax is appropriate and justifiable without damaging Britain's appeal to inward investors.
Okay, John Caudwell, thank you for your thoughts today. Billionaire businessman, former Conservative Party donor John Caudwell there.